Hello and welcome to the Celtic Way morning briefing live. I'm Tony Haggerty and I'm joined by Alison McConnell to talk all things Celtic. How are you, Alison?
I'm fine, thank you, Anthony. Yourself?
I'm very well, thanks a lot. So we'll get straight into a busy day yesterday, Alison, for Celtic. One in, one out. Carol Starfelt arrived finally. £4 million from Ruben Kazan, and they said goodbye to Christopher Ajer. No real surprise there, but I think some of the fans were getting a bit worried about the Starfelt deal, eh?
I think there was an inevitability to both of them. I think we've all anticipated that Christopher Ajer would, dot the I's and cross the T's on that move at some point this week. I think it had been well anticipated. I think he left a fairly nice message as he signed out. I think he's had his time at Celtic. He's moving on, and I think we all knew that was coming. Starfelt, I think it was obviously Celtic desperately need a centre-half to come in. I would argue that they still could do with another one coming in. The only problem is now he'll have to quarantine because of the COVID regulations. He'll have to quarantine, and I don't know even if he might have an outside chance of playing at Tynecastle next weekend for that opening league campaign or not. But the real headache is a defensive pairing ahead of the return leg in Denmark next week.
And speaking of the return leg, I wanted to gather your thoughts on the first leg at Celtic Park the other night. And there was a lot to enthuse about, Alison, amongst a couple of things that weren't so much to enthuse about.
Yeah, I think the performance as a whole was there were positives to draw from it. I thought Celtic played with a bit of aggression. I thought they played with a bit of purpose. I think they were a bit unfortunate. I thought the Callum McGregor shot that came off the bar, I think, was maybe always rising. But Christie's one that came off the post, you're thinking, could have gone in another day. They could have had a more comfortable margins. But the madness and the idiocy of near beater, it's a rush of blood to the head. But it flips the tie entirely. It changes the tone. And I know that then both teams went down to 10 men and it was fairly even, but I just think it will be seen as an opportunity lost. I think Celtic could really have taken a more commanding lead, and it's very much in the balance. I think it's going to depend what you get now when you go over and play the second leg. I think it'll be quite a tense game, and I think if you come through this one, then you know at least that you're guaranteed some kind of participation in European football. It would take you into the Europa League without having to go through another qualifier, I think. Whereas I think if you go out, it becomes even tougher again. But also, it just sets a tone. I think these games, I think they create a mood around the club and around the team. And in that respect, I think fans would have been appreciative of the level of performance, well mindful that there were old frailties that reared their head again and that have to be addressed. I think going forward, there has to be consolidation over the goalkeeper position. You have to decide what's going to happen there. And I think obviously that entire back line needs to be solidified.
I was going to come to that, the goalkeeping situation. What's your take? Because Barkas, once again, history repeating itself in a Champions League qualifying tie. He just didn't cover himself in any kind of glory, despite being given a vote of confidence by the manager at the start of this season.
On a personal level, I think it's difficult not to feel for him. I think coming into a new culture and all the difficulties of last season, on a professional level, I think he looks a bit out of his depth at the minute. Now, he is an international goalkeeper. He has played Champions League football for AEK. We know that there is a goalkeeper there, and I still think there might be, but I think as time goes on, you're maybe coming to the conclusion that he might have to go elsewhere for that to come out. I'm not sure how much trust has been lost during his time at Celtic, and I think many people would have been willing him to make saves and willing him to put in a pretty big performance, because I think if we could get one or two strong displays, I think it might have been the cornerstone for a renaissance and for coming back in and really establishing himself as number one. But we've not seen that. We've seen glimpses of it against Preston. I think there were a few decent saves, but as you and I would both know, it's one thing doing it in a pre-season friendly, and it's an entirely different prospect when you're asked to do it on a fairly tense stage.
Now, I looked at the goal, and I've looked at it many times and from many angles. It seems like a bread and butter save, or at least a punch. No, I even think he could have held it. For some inexplicable reason, he's done neither nor. It's ended up in the back of the net, and as you say, the tyres swung on the back of that.
I think that the kindest way you could describe it is by saying it's a soft goal to lose. I think when you look at it back, you think you want your goalkeeper to be saving it, and you want him to be much more commanding, I think, in that 6-yard box. And I think it's a problem. It's been a problem, and it's a headache that's not going to go away. And as we all know now, there is a very loud ticking of a clock in the background, because I don't think you can underestimate just how important these games are, and how difficult. I think, to be fair, I do think at this point in the season, I think it is difficult to get players in. I think particularly on the back of a tournament, I think it can be hard. I think sometimes when players return to clubs south of the border, I think the window starts to gather a bit of pace, more so in August. I think it can be difficult for clubs in Celtic's position at this point, because I think what you find is that players hedge their bets a bit, and they want to see what other options they have and what's going to be available, and things start to gather speed when you start to go into August. So I have some sympathy. I think what we've seen throughout Champions League qualifiers over the last decade or so, or going back longer, is always that you essentially go into them with the same squad that finished the previous campaign, and I think we would all know that you could pick over the bones, and you could still chew over the bones of what went wrong then.
Now, one of the more positive and bright spots was the 44 minutes that Liel Abada played. Scored a fantastic goal, looked really in the mood, excuse me, and probably ended up cursing his compatriot near Beaton for getting sent off, and he was sacrificed. But he's someone moving forward that could excite the Celtic supporters, don't you think?
Yeah, I think first impressions are good. I thought he acquitted himself very well. I thought, like you, I thought he looked lively, looked energetic. I thought he brought an energy to that side of the pitch. I thought his goal will do him wonders in terms of confidence and coming into a new team and settling very, very quickly. He's young. I think he's still only 19. But yeah, I think initial impressions are very good. I thought he made a good impression. It was interesting actually as he went off. I saw just the Postecoglou just having a word in his ear, clearly just saying, I'm having to rejig this whole and reorganise this team on the back of going down to 10 men. But I thought he played very, very well, and it offers a very good indication of what he might bring to the team going forward. You've got to remember too that there are still other players to come back in. You get James Forrest to come back in too. So yeah, I think that area looks all right, but I think there are other areas of the team that need surgery and probably need surgery quite quickly.
Now, you spoke about Ange Postecoglou there and hugging Abada as he left the field. I also saw Andy's reaction to the goal. He hugged the backroom staff and then wandered up his technical area and gave it the clenched fist salute, which I think that the Premier Sport cameras panned in on that, and that's good for the players to see that, isn't it? That he wears his heart on his sleeve, and he will react to certain things.
Yeah, absolutely. I think again, if we go back to initial impressions of the manager, I think he's come across very well. I think what people often spot quite quickly in football is fraudulent behaviour. I think when you're trying to imitate and you're trying to put on an act, I think fans see through it very, very quickly. I think players see through it very quickly, and for us in the media, yeah, we can smell her out through it fairly quickly. And I think what you would see is he's authentic. I think he's very grounded. I think he speaks well. I was at his first press conference when he came in, and I thought he handled it impeccably. I thought he spoke very well, and I think he's probably someone that the players will relate to. I could imagine him being fairly forthright in what he wants from them and what he expects from them. And I think that can be welcome in terms of the celebration and what goes with it. I think part of that sometimes is relief too. I think you have to remember that managers and coaches and everyone is under a level of scrutiny constantly. I think sometimes what you see is just a bit of that coming out when there are goals or when there are results that go your way. But what we didn't see was his reaction when Nir Beaton got involved and got involved fairly needlessly. I think that might have been interesting to have a camera on then, because you're just thinking, you know, you'd be as well taking a gun and just putting it through your foot. You think what chances you have at a time when you're rebuilding and you're trying to organise yourself with very limited resources at this point. I think you just could do without it, and his heart must have sank like a stone.
What did impress me though in the aftermath, Alison, he refused to throw Beaton or Barkas under the bus. He came out and said, we were underprepared, and 4 words that struck me, we said, it is on me. Had Celtic lost that game, he was taking the entire blame for that, which was maybe, I think it's refreshingly honest, brutally honest, to be fair, but he was going to take all the flack for that and deflect it away from the players, because he clearly knows that he needs new players in, doesn't he? He clearly knows that, as you've alluded to there, there's major surgery needed. He was going to take all that criticism.
I thought his comments were very interesting. I think there might have been a temptation to be critical and to be publicly critical when an experienced player lets you down like that. But I thought it was clever not to do it. I think he's just in the door. First competitive game. You're still trying to find out the lay of the land and work out what's what. I thought it was very diplomatic what he said. However, what has come through quite clearly, I think, in pre-match and post-match comments, is a frustration at things not moving as quickly as he would like, and I think that's very understandable.
Speaking of things moving then, Alison, what do you think Celtic need moving forward? We've touched upon the surgery, but, you know, potentially a goalkeeper, a right back, another centre back, possibly a midfield enforcer, and one striker maybe. There's 5.
Yeah.
I mean, would you agree with that, or you see more?
I think you would agree with that. Do I think that Celtic will get that amount in? Probably not. I may be wrong, but yep, I would agree pretty much with it. I think there's even an argument to say you could do with 2 strikers, depending on what happens.
Yeah.
And also, I think things will depend on who stays and who might go. I think there was more interest in Callum McGregor. There were a few whispers this summer about Callum McGregor. I think the fact that he has been given and has accepted the captaincy would suggest that we can conclude that he sees his long-term future now at Celtic, but there are still question marks over other players there. I think Ryan Christie would be a big one. I thought Ryan Christie played particularly well on Tuesday night. I thought he put in a very good performance, and I thought he's a player that could yet have a future, or could he yet have a future at Celtic? I'm not sure. I'm not sure if he's decided that he fancies going and trying his game to elevate his game elsewhere. I'm not sure, but I think these are questions that have to be considered when you're discussing who's coming in, because I think much will depend on both situations. But like you, I think that there's a need for a right back quite clearly. I think there's an argument that the midfield is fairly well served, but there is an argument for a particular kind of midfielder to come in, particularly since you've lost Scott Brown and you've lost that industry and competitive element that he gave you, the gritty end of it, the dirtier side of the game. And I have to say, I thought Sorrell done that pretty well the other night. I saw that there are fairly mixed reviews of his performance. I thought he'd done very well the other night, and I think he could yet grow into that role. But certainly, I think there will be more players coming in. I think there is a need for other personnel. How many? I'm not sure. I don't think I don't think we could commit to saying there'll be 5 or 6 that will come in. I think you're going to have to wait and see who goes out.
Odsonne Edouard, do you still feel that he's on borrowed time in terms of leaving the club? You know, again, he was okay the other night against Midtjylland, but he did miss a sitter, which the old Odsonne Edouard would have, you know, taken no problem at all. There's just something missing. There's a spark missing with Odsonne Edouard at the moment, isn't there?
I actually thought he'd done all right. I have to say, I know the opportunity that you're talking about. I actually thought that over the piece he'd done not too badly. I think it would be harsh to be overly critical of him. I do think that his heart is set on a move elsewhere.
Yeah.
I think if we're being honest, I think he wanted it last year. I don't think he would be prepared to wait and see it out. But what I do think is that, you know, it's time now for him maybe just to step up a bit and just to sign off from Celtic, having done his part at this stage in the season. I think he was still top scorer last season in the country. I think he still has much to offer, but is he a long-term prospect at Celtic? No. I think come September, I would strongly suspect that he'll be playing his football elsewhere. In the meantime, though, I think he still has a job to do in trying to steer Celtic through these qualifiers. And it was interesting, actually, he didn't go off to the Olympics with France. I'm not sure if that was a combination of maybe Celtic's request that he stays and helps for these games, or his own wishes to stay and try and sort out his club future. I'm not sure, but I thought that was quite interesting too.
Now, Celtic play West Ham on Sunday, Alison. The final warm-up game before the second leg against Midtjylland in Denmark. Do you think Ange Postecoglou will start with a team that will resemble the starting lineup in Denmark on Wednesday?
Well, to be brutally honest, I'm not sure that he has any other choice when you consider the personnel that he's got available to him, the people who are fit, and those who are quarantining. I'm not sure that there's any other option. I think there isn't a huge amount of choice.
My thinking behind that's maybe like the likes of Dane Murray and Stephen Welsh at the back of the pack, just to see how they fare together.
Yeah.
In a game, that you know, that kind of thing.
Yeah, I think there might be scope to do that. That's an interesting one as well, though, isn't it? Because there's a real dilemma there about that, because what happens if one of them goes and gets injured, and then what are you doing before you head off to Denmark?
You know, he's also got Iragidi there that he could maybe play alongside Welsh too at a central defensive position. But it's just interesting, as you say, to see what lineup he will play. He maybe hasn't got a lot of options, but I think he might do something similar. The team on Sunday to the one he's going to play on Wednesday night, because he might want to see them all play together. Yeah,
I think there's no doubt about it. I think you could draw that conclusion. I think when you see the team at the weekend, I'd be fairly certain it would be there or thereabouts for the team that starts when they play Midtjylland. Well, that's been the Celtic Way Morning Briefing Live. Thanks for joining me, Alison. And we'll see you again tomorrow.